The idea with the poems, call and response, is that they call out and respond. So back and forth, the title in one voice and the response, the poem, in another. And I'll start with one called, What Are Your Skills? Every year at sea school, we were taught that glaciers purr and ice floes huge below the surface were sunning cats. Call ours a failed education. If it makes you feel better, call our hymns under night skies cracked. But for 13 years, we sailed on bluer water. And all of us know well how to arch our backs. And sticking with the idea of school, this is called, for your essay, define intelligence. Kari's grandmother knew the right words to explain. She said, their ears can't listen. They've traded their hearing for a bigger make-believe mirror. Deaf now, fixed in four corners, that was her point. Her heart first, mind second, but almost a tie, an absolute wisdom. One time she took my hand and said, the day knows many ways to tell you. That blue jay, a drop in the temperature, and none are with a gun. For your essay, describe nature. The screen door batters in its frame. This is no June storm. This is more than a little wind. So stand with your back against whatever swear words you can. Let them bloom. Plant a garden. If you had peaches, they'd be flinging, nothing left. Wind pilfered, engined under. You can love talk forever about nature. It'll still kick your ass. And from the idea of school to Sunday school, I think that's still a thing. This is called Tell Us a Parable. One priest had a talent for cataloging sin, a brain like a laser. Nobody minded when he fell from a ladder or wished they could feel more bad. Another packed mass like a stadium, but skipped 6 days of work. He didn't make lunch for the daycare, forgot the old. The smart priest kept a garden, 7 boxes on his windowsills, larkspur, every shape and shade of fire, better than homilies. We loved to see them in the morning as we drove by. Tell us one of your rituals. In spring, we honor fire while everything is green. We wait for the 8 signs, those upslope boulders, to re-emerge from snow, then stoke the bonfire with all that needs to burn. The husks of one day, skeletons of yes, our dials that only go from medium to minus. We turn them into heat and light and ash. Yeah, and then what happens? Then the year starts over. I never said we were different than the grass. So one of the other things about the collection is that the poems themselves aren't just responding to the titles, but calling out to each other and calling back. So I'm going to do 3 that I think do that. I mean, I don't have them in that order chronologically necessarily. There's a structure, of course, but I think there's a substrate too. I said substrate, and that's in case my wife was able to listen. She knows about geology. I do not. I may have used that word totally incorrectly. But this is called What's My Fortune? On the coast, you might spot a minor griffin, but your fury will mistake it for a seagull. Your anger makes beach fires forbidden. There are orcas, but they'll go unseen. Driftwood knows it's a floating letter. I was there, now here, then somewhere next, but your hurt won't read it. And the rest is hazy, uncertain. So I'll just say this. I have to eat fish skins too, till I'm full, but not the bones. They're too much work. When's my luck gonna change? There aren't enough miracles to divvy up. Sometimes this frustrates the angels. They'd like to build a motor that rewinds chances, swing a wrecking ball at the vertebrae of bad luck. But they aren't industrious. They just sing. I'm not complaining. They're nice hosts, but what can they do? Storms blast. The sky goes on. They wish us well. And this goes back to the opening poem. This is called, What's It Like Living by the Ocean? At least one pier and wind forever and weather that doesn't ask, how are you? Grass in the sand dunes and sadness. It never blows away. It just keeps shifting around. Everything is old here. Cormorants, the cliff face, and everything old is better than everything new, like that plug-in lighthouse with no one inside. We don't mind questions, I guess, but look out west and tell me that you don't know. And then I'll finish with a longer poem. This one's a prose poem. It's called, In the Beginning Was a River. In the beginning was a river. People who know me know this. I don't pretend to be an expert on the legal codes of New Zealand. But back in March, something happened there that keeps on running through my mind. Their House of Representatives, which must be a bunch better than ours, passed a bill giving human rights to the Wanganui River. How's that for treatment of a natural resource? Pretty good. And what I keep thinking now that a river can claim personhood and dignity is, what do I want to suggest for human rights next? Probably stars. They deserve to be noticed. Once a month, we'll have darkness by decree. We'll have 12 new ways to look up, a dozen needed oases. And Puget Sound, of course, whether seen from a ferry or not, whether or not it's sundown on Seattle's million windows, so the skyline is mirroring gold, orange, rose, and red, and the Olympic Mountains are both in front of you and behind you, and seagulls ride rivers of updraft, and this time and place and wind should be vested with rights. The trees near Crescent City, too, they're older than Christianity. I'll call each redwood a cathedral drinking fog, which truly is holy water. The snowmelt I drank in an ice cave, rights. Those ghost conversations of coyotes, rights. That soul-blown sound of a train at night, part love, part loss, and part Coltrane, couldn't be more human, with the human right to quiet so that everything that needs to hear can hear. And what about you? Isn't there a lakeshore somewhere? Or a night in some December? Or a time you saw some pronghorn and were doubly surprised, first by their nearness, then a second time by how they leapt away, too squat to be bounding like that? Isn't there a long distance drive you've taken with a good enough reason at the end of it, where the view from the porch of a lightning storm coursing the sky? Anyway, it's November, soon to be winter in Utah, where most aren't yelling and opposed to helping refugees. Most don't think it's okay to zero them out, leave them trapped in their national horrors. In New Zealand, they've granted more rights than that to a river, which ought to be an elemental lesson. Here's hoping it flows all the way from there to DC. Thanks.